hearse casket. Pallbearer, bring the urn out. Killer with the flow, won't ever be burned out. Low to the flow, keep a stupendous peace. 365 days straight, they won't end my streak. I came with the streak, pound for pound, here nobody compete. Clown around, I'll pound you down. Put the town on notice, I'm keeping receipts. The main event, they've been waiting most of the year. Running through comp, make sure the coast is clear. Never dull moments, always jokers near. Trying to get spared, I hit him with a spear. Constantly, my style is jackhammered. Gotta switch it up before I backhand. For NYC all the way to Atlanta. Them hotel suites, the tabs we all ran up. Breaking all pod laws. The smoke alarm down, doors blocked off. Closed mouth to get fed, no lockjaw. They try to shock a nigga like Sky Hall. Knock it off. All you niggas pussy and your block is off. Run down or you might rip your pockets off. The best thing to do is just spike it lost. Might run down or you rip your pockets off. The best thing for you to do is just spike it lost.
Welcome to part 2 of Rappin' Wrestling, a deep dive where I break down the times that the worlds of professional wrestling and rap have collided. I'm really not going to hold you guys for long because people have been on me to drop a part 2 and I just want to get straight into it. But before I get into the video, I would first like to thank you guys for coming to see this. If you like the content, you guys should like, comment, and subscribe to help the channel grow. Also, follow my Instagram too. That would be greatly appreciated. You guys can always reach out and just show me some love. It's all good. Let me know where you're tuning in from. Represent where you're from. But without further ado, let's get into the video. We gotta start off this video with none other than the legendary New Jack. After part 1, this is one of the guys that people really wanted to see in part 2. In part 1, I actually mentioned him when I was talking about Master P and the No Limit Soldiers' time in WCW. There would be a guy by the name of Big Swole who was in the WCW No Limit Soldiers who wanted New Jack to also be a part of the group. WCW, however, denied this due to them deeming New Jack as a liability. Now, if you're not too familiar with New Jack, either look him up or watch his episode called The Life and Crimes of New Jack, which is a part of Dark Side of the Ring on Vice. The man was not to be messed with for sure, and of course, after New Jack found out he wouldn't be in the No Limit Soldiers, he would confront Kevin Nash, who was on the booking committee for WCW at the time. Of course, New Jack wouldn't be happy about this, especially since he was a big fan of Master P along with the other artists on No Limit Records. You can see numerous pictures of him wrestling and wearing Master P, Silk the Shocker, and No Limit shirts. He also has been pictured with shirts that had Tupac and Snoop Dogg on them. Another connection he has with rap is that he would be in a tag team with another wrestler named Mustafa, and they would come out to Ice Cube and Dr. Dre's song Natural Born Killers. Even when New Jack was no longer teaming with Mustafa, he still used it and used it for years. I believe he used the song pretty much all the way up until his death. While he was in TNA though, he used kind of like a generic version of the instrumental of Natural Born Killers as his entrance music. But something that I didn't know is that also while in ECW, New Jack would have a theme done by none other than Bootsy Collins. Now, while Bootsy might not be a rapper, he still is ingrained in the rap and hip-hop culture, especially with his influence in the things that he's done throughout his career, and like there is like pretty much like a bit of like a rap in the song. There are multiple versions of the song, with me seeing people saying that in total there are 4 versions. Here's a clip of the song. New Jack would do an interview back in 2001 where he talked about working with Bootsy Collins. He said that he begged ECW to play his music video with Bootsy Collins on TV for 8 months, but they never did, and Bootsy actually footed the bill to do the video. Bootsy was a big fan of wrestling and had went to a couple of ECW shows, which sparked his interest in wanting to work with them. In this interview, New Jack spoke out about how ECW did him and Bootsy dirty. Instead of bringing in Bootsy, ECW brought in Billy Corgan from the group The Smashing Pumpkins. He further pointed out that ECW would put together a music video for Limp Bizkit at the Anarchy Rules pay-per-view when he made his return. He would be the only wrestler in the company not in that video according to him, but he did appear in the segment when Steve Corino invaded a Limp Bizkit concert. I never knew that happened, but it's definitely an awesome segment. It's like the most 90s thing ever, and the crowd loved it. Speaking of Limp Bizkit, I've seen Fred Durst on a lot of rappers that were in WWE list. If you guys consider him a rapper, I would definitely look into it, and I would definitely include him in future episodes if you guys really want me to talk about him. Some other entrance themes he has come out to throughout the years though, throughout various companies, are Shut 'Em Down and Can't Trust It by Public Enemy, and Murder Was the Case by Snoop Dogg. Side note, Mustafa of the Gangsters used to come out to the Wu-Tang Clan song Cream. I also believe that the Deli Boys came out to that song on at least one occasion as well. New Jack also appeared in the music video for his self-titled song For Smoke DZA. Side note, I don't really plan on mentioning all the times wrestlers have appeared in rap music videos, but we'll mention it when I can. But to close out this segment, rest in peace, New Jack. I mean, do we really need an introduction to who The Rock is? The man is known as one of the most electrifying people in sports entertainment. A man that went from the heights of the professional wrestling industry to being the highest paid actor in Hollywood. The Rock is a person who's done many things, with one being him dabbling in the world of rap. Some may remember in the last episode where I mentioned the WWF Aggression album and how Method Man of the Wu-Tang Clan would make a theme for The Rock. But those who are older will probably remember when in 2000 The Rock and Wyclef Jean would make the track It Doesn't Matter, which is one of The Rock's catchphrases. I've seen people say that this song was played a lot back in the day, but in the US it didn't really do anything on the charts. But however, the track would be bigger overseas, with it peaking at number 3 on the UK singles charts, number 1 on the UK hip hop R&B charts, number 4 in Scotland, number 8 in Canada, and number 9 in Ireland. During his wrestling career, The Rock would have a notable run-in with the rapper when on an episode of SmackDown in 2002, he had Busta Rhymes come to the ring. They would talk, promote Busta Rhymes' upcoming movie at the time, and sing a little song. That same night, Kurt Angle would come out to the ring and hilariously call Busta Rhymes Puff Daddy, which was just super hilarious. Pitbull would also join The Rock to celebrate his birthday on an episode of Raw in 2011. But back to rapping, and The Rock wouldn't necessarily rap on the It Doesn't Matter track, and it wouldn't be until years later when he featured on the Tech 9 song Face Off. The video would go number 1 on YouTube and also went viral on TikTok, being the number 1 song on the app at a point in time. Originally, The Rock wasn't even supposed to have a verse on the song. Tech 9 reached out to The Rock for him to do a spoken word bit at the end of the song. Upon listening to the track, The Rock had an idea to rap at the end because he felt like doing a WWE-esque promo at the end wouldn't be doing service to everybody on the track. The Rock is self-admittedly no writer, but he told Tech 9 that he planned to pen his verse anyway. He started writing words down and putting them together, with Tech 9 helping him with his structure and flow after showing him what he put down. I really liked the song, and when I first heard it, I was blown away by The Rock's part because he did a phenomenal job. Nicki Minaj was a person who a lot of people wanted me to mention in this video, especially since I mentioned Lil Kim doing Trish Stratus's theme in the last video. Some may know that before Nicki went on to be a megastar, she did Victoria's theme music, Don't Mess With Me. This was done all the way back in 2004, which would be 6 years before her debut album. At this time, she was not known as Nicki Minaj due to her having the stage name Nicki Minaj back then. then. During 2004, she would be with the group called the Hood Stars, and they would feature on the track also. Fun fact, her ex-boyfriend Safari would be in the group and he appears on the track as well. Victoria would have no clue that Nicki Minaj did her theme way back then for years due to Nicki having a different name at the time. WWE would go to Victoria and ask her what type of music that she wanted, and she said hip-hop. The song Don't Mess With Me was chosen, and years later she would find out via Twitter that Nicki Minaj did her theme. This segment is kind of short, so I decided to add in 2 more topics before I close it, and one is Run DMC. In April of 1989, Run DMC would perform a WrestleMania rap at the 5th annual event. I've seen that this moment has mixed reviews depending on who you ask, but I mean at the time, Run DMC was very huge. The idea to do a rap for WrestleMania wasn't a Run DMC plan. Their road manager knew that DMC of Run DMC was a huge Hulk Hogan fan. WrestleMania 5 would be in Atlantic City, so their manager drove Run DMC to the event as a birthday gift to DMC. Jam Master Jay and Run knew nothing about what was going on. They would just come and performed with DMC because their manager told the at the time WWF that DMC was a big Hulk Hogan fan and was going to come to the event. After hearing that Run DMC would be coming to WrestleMania, the WWF asked if the group could do them a favor and record something to perform. This is how the performance ultimately came about. This wouldn't be the last time that Run DMC would do something with the WWF because they would appear on the WWF Aggression album that was released in March of 2000. For those who don't know, the WWF Aggression album contained entrance music of WWF wrestlers re-recorded by various hip-hop artists and groups. Run DMC would make the song The Kings for D-Generation X. Awesome theme, by the way. Definitely go check it out if you have never heard it. How this came about is that Jam Master Jay was approached for the project by Dana Dane, who used to be label mates with Run DMC at Profile Records. Dana Dane told Jam Master Jay that he was doing something on the WWF Aggression album, and Jay would tell his fellow group members about the opportunity. This led to the creation of the song The Kings. We're not done yet because 6 years after Run DMC performed WrestleMania rap, Salt-N-Pepa would perform their song What a Man at WrestleMania 11 in April of 1995. This would be the entrance song for Lawrence Taylor, who was in the main event against Bam Bam Bigelow. Rest in peace. The song would be reworked to include LT and Bam Bam references. A fun fact about the song What a Man is that the song would be used by Dean Malenko as his entrance music for a period in time. It would also be used by Jason Knight and the Giant Paul Loria as well. A man who I feel like doesn't get enough credit for the things that he's done in the ring. He's way before my time, but going back and watching some of his stuff, the man was simply amazing in the ring. I heard that even at his age, he can still go today. For those who's watched him, they would know that there's a connection between the hip-hop culture and wrestling with him. For instance, while in ECW, him and Ron Simmons used to come out to the tag team song Whoop There It Is. Cold Scorpio also came out to the song Jungle Boogie by Kool and the Gang as well. Two themes that perfectly fit his character, and Cold Scorpio would breakdance, which is one of the elements of hip-hop. Cold Scorpio would also be involved in an interesting deal between the WWF and ECW. For years, it has been speculated that the then chairman and CEO of the WWF, Vince McMahon, was paying money to keep ECW afloat for multiple alleged reasons, but mainly for the ECW backlog and library. Jim Ross, who used to work for the WWF, has been on record saying that the company was paying Paul Heyman $50,000 a month. Now this is alleged, and Paul Heyman has disputed this, saying that the number the WWF paid ECW was $1,000 per week. But about this, Paul Heyman would say, "I never took a check from WWE while I was running ECW. In 1996, I had a meeting with Vince McMahon, and there was some talent in WWE that he was going to send to ECW and keep on his payroll as long as I could work with these talents and develop them. There was some talent talent in ECW that Vince was looking to bring into WWE, ECW had a deal with Tommy Boy Records to use some of their music. Every time Cold Scorpio was on the ECW TV show, we put a lower third of his music, and the first commercial was always an ad by Tommy Boy Records. And for this, Tommy Boy Records sponsored ECW to the tune of $1,000 per week. If I were to send Cold Scorpio to WWE, ECW would lose the sponsorship. We lose $1,000 a week. Vince says, I'll cover the grand. I'll send you $1,000 a week for the rights to use Cold Scorpio. If you look since that day, in September of 1996, WWE paid ECW $1,000 a week. So that's Paul's version of the story, but some people have even disputed this. I tried my best to find out what song Cold Scorpio used, but I'm using the reference to the tag team song Whoop There It Is, but there's a problem with this. Now I could be totally wrong about this, even though Too Cold did use that song, and it could have been another song Too Cold was using in ECW that I don't know about, but let's assume the song being talked about is Whoop There It Is. That's not a Tommy Boy song. The song was released on Bellmark and Life Records, but like I said, I could be totally wrong about the song being Whoop There It Is, but if it's in fact Whoop There It Is, it's not a Tommy Boy Records song. But speaking of Whoop There It Is, it wouldn't be the only rap song that would be Cold Scorpio's entrance music, because while Cold Scorpio was in WCW, he had another song called Here Comes Too Cold.
Rhythm in his blood, does all of his moves. He's his own man and he does his own moves. Who's his opponent? He don't care. I like to go for a brother. He attacks from the air. Too cold. Scorpio.
Those who know of Cold Scorpio would know that after his time in ECW, he would go to the WWF and would then be known as Flash Funk, which was inspired by Rick James. He would still dance to the ring with his funkettes. Nonetheless, Cold Scorpio is a phenomenal performer and innovator in the sport. I can't explain to you guys how much I want the Def Jam fighting games to come back. As a fan of the series, I am not going to acknowledge that piece of crap that is known as Def Jam Icon. We are not going to acknowledge that. But man, Def Jam Vendetta and Fight for New York, something else. Those two games, something else. Let's first start off with Def Jam Vendetta, which was released in 2003. Some story behind Vendetta is that this would be EA, also known as Electronic Arts, first attempt at making a wrestling game since the widely panned WCW Backstage Assault that was released in 2000. Aki, who was one of the developers of the game Def Jam Vendetta, were working on the sequel to WCW Mayhem for the PlayStation 2 to be published by EA. But in 2001, WCW would go out of business and would be purchased by the WWF, which would ruin these plans. Around this time, Kevin Laws was the president of Def Jam Records and was an avid gamer. He began noticing that music from recording artists was appearing more frequently in video games. Def Jam had been licensing a lot of music to game companies, and he thought why they weren't making games themselves. This led to him having a sit down with EA to come up with something involving hip-hop and bring it to reality and actually tell a story. The developers would have 8 months to make the game. That's basically a short version behind the creation of Vendetta and how the whole series came about. Throughout numerous brainstorming sessions, the details of the game were fleshed out and the idea of having a fighting wrestling game with rappers was born. The roster was filled with rappers such as Method Man, Redman, Ludacris, Ghostface Killah, Scarface, Nori, and DMX, who still to this day is a nightmare to beat in Def Jam Vendetta. The rappers would have input on the game, with the developers asking them what clothes their character should wear down to what wrestling moves their characters would do. Def Jam Vendetta would receive favorable reviews, with people comparing it to playing similarly to WWF No Mercy, which is widely considered to be one of the greatest professional wrestling games of all time. Essentially, the Def Jam fighting video game series is the ultimate example of what this series about rap and wrestling is about, putting the two together and making a beloved franchise that was a part of many of our childhoods. Def Jam Vendetta took our love for wrestling, rap music, and video games and put them into a blender. Just like any other wrestling wrestling game in Vendetta, you can win by pin, KO, or submission. Characters perform wrestling moves and have different fighting styles, in which Def Jam Fight for New York greatly expands upon this. Def Jam Fight for New York greatly expands on pretty much everything Vendetta did. A bigger roster with more rappers like Busta Rhymes, Snoop Dogg, Ice-T, Exhibit, Slick Rick, etc. Distinct fighting styles are just like what happens in wrestling games with, street fighting, kickboxing, martial arts, wrestling, and submissions being options for Def Jam Fight for New York. Don't even get me started on the blazing moves, which are basically their version of what's known as a finisher in wrestling. Def Jam Fight for New York is one of my favorite games of all time, and I'm trying to come across a copy like right now, but this game is ridiculously hard to come by. I had it as a kid on the original Xbox, but that was a long time ago, of course. But like I said earlier in this segment, I am not going to talk about that pile of filth known as Def Jam Icon. We don't acknowledge that game. We just don't acknowledge it. But as of today, the franchise is dead, but throughout the years, returns have been teased, but no actual announcement to bring back the series as of today has been made. I really would love to see a new Def Jam game, and if it does return, I would love to see the series return to how Vendetta and Fight for New York were, and I also would definitely, I think that there should definitely be remasters for the game. The only problem I really see is the potential roster, because Def Jam nowadays doesn't have the best roster. The people that I see that could potentially be in a game on their roster right now is Benny the Butcher, 2 Chainz, Big Sean, Dave East, Fabulous, Jadakiss, Jeezy, Logic, LL Cool J, Nas, Pusha T, YG, and Public Enemy. In my opinion, that's not a strong enough roster, but that means that they would have to have one hell of a creation suite if they can't get other people to get on the game. And I definitely think that Def Jam Fight for New York and Def Jam Vendetta should get a remaster one day. LL Cool J is definitely one of the greatest rappers of all time, and he had multiple appearances in the WWE. His first appearance dates back to 2002. He would have a backstage segment with the APA and Booker T where they had an argument. Booker T recalled this moment and said that he didn't know how big LL was until he stood up. LL was almost bigger than him, if not bigger. LL was also there to promote an upcoming movie he was starring in called Rollerball. The most memorable thing, besides his run-in with Booker T, is LL doing this weird thing where he would form a shark fin with his hand and would slide it down his face while his tongue was out, almost licking it. It's just mad weird. And if a dude did that to me during an argument, I would feel hella disrespected. But I saw that that whole thing with him doing this, it blew up on Twitter recently, just like the my hat is a shark's fin thing just did. LL be doing some crazy ridiculous stuff. I don't know what LL be on. This wouldn't be the last time that LL appeared on WWE programming, because in 2014, him and Chris O'Donnell of the show NCIS Los Angeles would appear. LL would also do the opener for WrestleMania 31, which was fantastic. In 2017, he would also join Titus Worldwide, for those who don't know. Once again, since this segment would have ended short, I decided to double it up. I've mentioned this a couple times on my channel. Some longtime viewers may know that I'm a fan of battle rap. For those who don't know what battle rap is, think of a promo that a wrestler does, but with rhyming. In battle rap, just like wrestling, they try to one-up their opponent by using insults, crowd control, and boasts, among many other things. One of my favorite battle rappers of all time is K-Shine, and he would be a part of a group called NWX. This is obviously a take on the NWO, which stood for New World Order, but the NWX stood for New World X. Just like the NWO, it didn't start out with a lot of people, but went on to have a full-on roster. The group was fairly popular among battle rap fans, with battle rap fans holding up the X and buying their NWX merchandise. They were bigger than a group, and just like the NWO, they were a full-on brand. Just like the NWO didn't exclusively have wrestlers, NWX didn't exclusively have had battle rappers. They had a rapper and producer in Rain. They also had battle rap personalities like Anwar, so the group wasn't exclusively filled with battle rappers. The individual battle rappers of NWX would do the standard one-on-one competitions when it came to battle rap. While members of NWX competed in one-on-one competitions, there were members like K-Shine and DNA who would represent the group in 2-on-2 competitions, with them being known as one of the best duos in battle rap. The duo would have a legendary rivalry with another duo named Gun Titles, which was comprised of Sue Surf and Tay Rock. But speaking of DNA, in 2017, at House of Glory's High Intensity 6 event, DNA would face wrestler Hank Flanders in a rap battle that was hosted by none other than Bret Hart. DNA would absolutely destroy Hank with his wrestling pay-per-view schemes and witty wordplay. DNA also has a show called the Attitude Era Podcast, and I've seen that he's had wrestlers like Swerve Strickland, The Godfather, Keith Lee, and Rikishi on it. Rap in itself is very similar to wrestling, but battle rap to me is like the closest thing due to them being very similar. A battle that I highly recommend for someone just getting into battle rap or is curious about battle rap would be Conceited versus B Magic. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. Recently, we have seen the wrestling promotion AEW tap into the hip-hop culture and have seen many rappers be involved in the brand. Rick Ross happens to be one of the people that AEW has brought in, but he's appeared on wrestling programming long before then. In 2012, he would appear for the, at the time, second biggest wrestling promotion in the United States, TNA. Rick Ross would appear at their Genesis pay-per-view. He would be in the crowd and had a part during Zima Ion, aka DJ Z's entrance, where he went to the rapper and he dissed him. Fast forward to 2022, and Rick Ross would appear in AEW, which is now the second biggest wrestling promotion in America. He's made 2 appearances as of the making of this video. For his first appearance, he appeared in a backstage segment with Swerve Strickland and Keith Lee. This is where the accusations meme came from, and upon watching the segment, you can see that Rick Ross is a natural on the mic and oozes charisma. People love this segment, and it would go viral on social media. His second appearance on AEW was at their Holiday Bash event, where he would be a part of Keith Lee and Swerve's face-to-face confrontation. This segment wasn't received as well as his first appearance, and Rick Ross would face some heat due to him dropping the F-bomb on TV. Rick Ross loves wrestling, so I think there will be more Rick Ross in AEW soon to come. It looks like the rapper will be the mouthpiece of a new faction with Swerve, Parker Boudreaux, and Grandin Goitzman. I think that's how you say it. Maybe Grandin Goitzman. Maybe. But since we're talking about AEW, I think it's only fair that we talk about one of the most over acts in the company, the Acclaimed. Side note, I don't really keep up with AEW like that, but I see a lot of stuff about the company via social media or when I'm catching up on my WWE news. The Acclaimed is a tag team between Platinum Max Caster and Anthony Bowens, while Max is the rapper of the group. Outside of what Max does on TV, he really makes music, and according to him, he does everything himself. He makes the beats, writes the raps, engineers, and mixes. His passion for music came from discovering different kinds of rap in high school, with him listening to the likes of Atmosphere and Murs. About this, he would say, I would say I started rapping or trying to rap in high school. We had a computer. We had a really crappy microphone in the kitchen of my house, and my friends would come over and we'd download instrumentals and we'd try and rap over them, and we didn't know what we were doing. It was no good. Some of those recordings exist that I'll never listen to, and I hope that no one ever hears them, but that's where it starts, right? It's just trying it out. Some people stick with it, a lot of people don't, and I don't know what it was with me that made me drawn to making music. I learned how to loop things, how to sequence drums, and what programs to use, and what's Fruity Loops, and what's this, and what's that, and it turned into this. I developed that skill on my own, and how to edit audio, how to record it myself. I still do all these things myself to this day for all the songs we put out, and that's helped me me streamline my career right now to making these things without pretty much anyone's help. When Max first started wrestling, he initially didn't want to incorporate the whole rapper thing into his character because it had already been done before, with early John Cena being an example. Max felt like it was a little stereotypical, but soon realized that the skills you have to pull it off required a lot of talent and would give him a huge leg up on everyone else. The rapping thing stuck for him, and he would be a member of the Shook Crew when they made music and music videos that started gaining traction. He saw the potential in this and developed it into a platinum Max caster. He aims to get more respect as a hip-hop artist, which is really admirable because he really loves the art and wants to be taken seriously as an MC. Early John Cena is someone that he's compared to a lot, which bothered him at first, but he notes that John Cena is one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, and he realized that this comparison wasn't that bad. But just like the doctor of the economics era of John Cena, Max comes down to the ring and disses his opponents on the mic during his entrance to the ring. It's a process for him to do this every week, with him starting early in the week. He keeps his eyes on what happens in the news and bounces ideas off of his tag team partner. Anthony will pitch him some ideas and judge whether his material is good or not. Definitely go watch some of Max Caster's best rap moment compilations because he has some pretty good disses. Some of his material has definitely gotten him into some hot water though, I might add, just like recently with the whole Kurt Angle thing. But the Acclaimed have even gone as far as to make full-on music videos dissing their opponents. Recently, they've dissed Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett in a music video with Billy Gunn. The Acclaimed are the current AEW Tag Team Champions, and I'm looking forward to getting more into AEW and seeing more of their work. Whoop whoop. When someone mentions ICP, it can lead to a very divided reaction. There are people who are die-hard fans of the group known as Juggalos, and people who absolutely despise them and think that they're one of the worst groups of all time. This is how people feel about them musically, and you can say the same thing about them in the wrestling industry. They have both been praised and absolutely buried by wrestlers. How ICP got started in wrestling was them working in various independent wrestling promotions, teaching themselves how to wrestle, and running their own backyard wrestling league. Through wrestling on the indies, Violent J would beat Rob Van Dam. This meeting with Rob Van Dam would lead ICP to appear in ECW in 1997 at their Hardcore Heaven show. The audience didn't know that ICP had wrestling experience, so they were surprised when they started taking bumps and Rob Van Dam would hit Violent J and rupture his eardrum, which led to him being temporarily deaf. Also in 1997, ICP would start Stranglemania, which was basically a compilation of Japanese matches but with ICP's own commentary track. I've seen bits and pieces and these two are hilarious on commentary. It's definitely a good watch on YouTube. Also, after the ECW thing, ICP would be approached by the WWF to make theme music for the group The Oddities. This theme actually goes really hard, by the way, and I say this as a person who hasn't really listened to a lot of ICP's music. Upon being asked to make music for The Oddities, they told the WWF that they could wrestle and sent them some tapes. The next thing that they know, they were booked to rap The Oddities out to the ring at SummerSlam in 1998. This went so well that ICP would further accompany The Oddities in person to the ring and perform. Eventually, Shaggy and Violent J would get in the ring and the Headbangers would infamously be very stiff with them. Headbanger Mosh has said that he was told to work very stiffly with them due to them asking Vince McMahon for more money. ICP would end up leaving the WWF, which they regret the manner that they did to this day. They felt like Vince Russo screwed them over and they ended up screwing the WWF by walking out on them. They had a pay-per-view match coming up and everything but walked out. For those who don't know, Vince Russo was the head writer for the WWF at a point in time. After ICP's stint in the WWF, they would go to WCW. This would be a very different experience for them due to them having more fun, because in the WWF they felt like people felt like ICP shouldn't be there because they didn't quote unquote pay their dues. While they were in WCW, they were in two groups, with one being the Deadpool, which was comprised of ICP, Raven, and Vampiro. The other would be the Dark Carnival, which was comprised of ICP, the Demon, Vampiro, and the Great Muta. While in WCW, they did a lot more in-ring work than they did in the WWE. After WCW, ICP went on to appear and wrestle in companies like TNA and Ring of Honor, so they've ultimately appeared in the WWF, WCW, ECW, Ring of Honor, and TNA. Earlier, I mentioned how back when ICP was first starting their wrestling careers, they had their own backyard promotion, but in 1999, they would start JCW with their first event happening in December of that year. The promotion would go through a name change after some years, but they still do events to this day. ICP would also be a part of 2 wrestling games with Backyard Wrestling, Don't Try This at Home, and Backyard Wrestling, There Goes the Neighborhood. I've never played these games. Like I said earlier, as a kid, I played the Def Jam fighting games. Let me know if you used to play the Backyard Wrestling games back in the day and how they were. Last but not least, we have Smoke DZA, and at the start of the video, I played songs from his wrestling-themed Ringside mixtape series. It's a mixtape series with producer 183rd, where Smoke DZA raps over the themes of wrestlers. The first Ringside project dropped in 2013, and currently there are 8 installments in the series. The first Ringside project dropped in 2013, Ringside 8 dropping in April of 2020. All the projects have dropped in April of the years that they came out, except Ringside 3, which dropped in March of 2015. The Ringside covers features wrestlers, with Ringside 1 having the Iron Sheik. Ringside 2 has a mountain of characters with people like the Macho Man, The Rock, Razor Ramon, Triple H, Ric Flair, etc. Ringside 3 has Smoke DZA in a robe. Ringside 4 has Smoke DZA choke out Hulk Hogan. Ringside 5 having Smoke DZA do the stunner to Donald Trump. Ringside 6 has a video-like game cover containing wrestlers like Scott Hall, Shawn Michaels, Hollywood Hogan, and Kevin Nash. Ringside 7 is a remake of the main event of WrestleMania 7 when Hulk Hogan went against Sergeant Slaughter. Finally, Ringside 8 has Mean Gene Okerlund on the cover along with Smoke DZA, 183rd, and the various rappers that feature on the project. The man of my knowledge outside of Westside Gunn is probably one of the biggest wrestling fans in rap today. Smoke DZA's love for wrestling started out as a kid with both of his parents being fans. His mother was into Rowdy Roddy Piper and his dad loved the Junkyard Dog, so it was always on at his house growing up. Growing up, he was more of a fan of the WWF, but did click back and forth between the WWF and WCW because he was a Hulk Hogan fan and was intrigued by his heel turn. But Smoke DZA regularly talks about wrestling in his interviews, and you can tell that he's an avid fan. In the last video, I talked about how Smoke DZA appeared on the song The Hurt Business with Westside Gunn, which went on to be remixed by MVP the Wrestler, who was in The Hurt Business. I pray as of the making of this video that The Hurt Business gets back together. Please, Triple H. But this wouldn't be the only time that Smoke DZA collaborated on the track with MVP, because he would also make the song Legalize It with Smoke DZA. The song would be released on 4/20 in 2022 and was produced by AD Empire. Go look up Smoke DZA Wrestling on YouTube or on the internet and you'll find countless videos or articles of him talking about it. The dude really knows his stuff. I'm definitely excited for Ringside 9 if it ever comes out. This will conclude the second installment of this series about rap and wrestling. Definitely let me know in the comments what you're thinking so far. Let me know of some more things to include. I know I'll get some comments about what I missed, but this is a series and I plan to make more of these. All in all, let me know what you thought of the video. I love you guys with all my heart. Peace.